that people limit themselves so much. I don't have time, and I don't have a supportive partner, and I have 3 kids, and I have 7 jobs, and I do have all of that. And I struggled through my entire life with a lot of things. I can literally write a book, and I just want to make people understand. No, it was not easy for me back then. It is absolutely easy right now, but not back then. And I worked towards it, and I was self-supported, and nobody paid for anything. And
Right.
You are listening to the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast with your host, Eric Logan. No Gimmicks, Just Sweat is dedicated to hearing the journeys and unique stories behind an athlete's training and what drives them. Get inspired to own your life and make the impossible possible. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Also, please take a few seconds to rate the show and drop me a review. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of No Gimmicks, Just Sweat. And today we welcome Maria Vazquez. Did I say it right? Vazquez?
Almost.
Almost. I'm trying. I
Almost,
try not to butcher people's names.
But that was very close. Very close. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And listeners, we did practice just 30 seconds before.
I didn't want to say that, but now that you said it,
We just did 30 seconds.
I was like, wait a minute, we just practiced.
Well, Maria, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really humbling and thankful. So thank you very much.
All right. So, with listeners that come on for the first time, we start out with some icebreaker questions. That's just this is gonna be fun. I promise.
Okay.
Just to kind of let the listeners get to know you. And I always knew about people, even though you follow a person for a while, there are things you go like, oh wait, I didn't know that. So it's
Yeah.
All right, so you ready?
I am.
Okay. All right, morning training or evening training?
Morning training.
Cardio training or strength training?
Cardio training.
Okay. Ride on a trail?
Ooh. Trail.
Oh, okay. Side with or without Zwift?
With.
Okay. Longest distance you've ever ridden?
Nonstop was 750 miles.
Wait, what?
Nonstop.
Did you just say not 750 miles?
750. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to get into that conversation once we start. I am making. I make sure we talk about that. All right, Shimano or SRAM?
Oh no. SRAM.
Okay. All right. First thing you do after a long ride?
Oh wow, that one. Oh wow. First thing I do after a ride, probably smile and be happy. I don't know. I have no clue. That was a good one.
You're just glad it's over.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. What's your dream race or ride to participate in?
Oh wow. In the future.
Yes.
So I think one of them I got in, which is Leadville mountain bike,
Okay.
100 miles. Yeah. But probably road, which is my main, will be RAM, Race Across America.
Okay. All right. If you can train with any celebrity or athlete, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, wow. Let me think about that one. That would, I, I don't know. I think, I don't know. These might cause issues, but probably Lance Armstrong, because I have tons and tons and tons of questions for him. in general, if you know what I mean.
Not asking very specific questions for those who know who I am.
Yeah, exactly. So I have tons and tons of questions. I'm very curious about a lot of things.
All right, last question. Dream location anywhere in the world that you want to go for a bike ride?
Oh, wow. That will have to be probably Amsterdam.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's
Hmm.
an interesting answer. I've never heard of Amsterdam before. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. All right. So
Yes.
let's get into who you are. And
Hmm.
always, with each episode, always kind of, word in a way to kind of think of themselves as, you're a superhero uh, or story. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, how you be presented on, how do we see your transition from, just, ordinary person to the super extreme superhero cyclist that you are today?
I'm gonna make it short, but it's a very long story. I was going through a very rough moment in my life in year 2008, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I ended up going to spinning to cope with it. I don't even know if I got invited or if somebody shared that that would be a good idea. I have no recollection of that. But I remember that I started doing spinning, and the girl that was my instructor was a mountain biker. I was the one not in the classroom. In the classroom, I will sit like way back, but spinning, I will sit like right across from her. Like I wanted her to see me, and I wanted to see her. And one day she just approaches me and says, "Hey, I'm loving the way you're pedaling. You should try, pedaling outside." And then she invites me to pedal with them. I had a very inexpensive mountain bike, which back then I thought it was, the coolest bike on earth. And then I went with them, and it was very interesting and a very like a learning curve because they were basically pros and I knew nothing about bikes. And I started doing some trails with her. And then, I fell a lot, like on the ground, like blood, DNA on the trails. And after that, I said, well, maybe I should consider switching to road. And I decided to go to a store and see what was out there. I came across a friend that I still consider a very, very good friend, and we were parents at the same school. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing here? Do you ride bikes?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm getting into it." And he's like, "Great, because I have an event and it's all females, and I would love for you to come." I'm like, "Great, that would be great." And 3 months after we met, I did my first ever 100 miler, which back then was like a very long distance. Like 100 miles for me back then was like, whoa. And that was such an accomplishment. I was dead last. And I still remember my biggest smile. At the I had, and I believe I still have that picture, me, my biggest smile. I remember going to eat something and feeling like the world was coming to an end with all the pain that I had. And it's very interesting because, yeah, still like 100 miles might be a long distance for a lot of people, but for me now it's just like a Sunday ride. And back then it was like, oh wow, I did 100 miles.
Right.
A couple of months after, I was doing events like across the island in Puerto Rico. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. And then one day I decided to go into ultra cycling, actually self-supported, what we call randonneurs. Or randonneering, and I don't know why. I think it was mainly because there were no women back then, that many women, at least in Puerto Rico doing that. And I'm like, sure, why not? Like, I would love to, do something that all other women can look and say, hey, she did it, I can do it. And I decided to go into randonneering, which is self-supported, very long distances. And I went from like 100 miler to doing this famous randonneering event, which is called PVP, Paris-Brest, Paris. and that's 750 miles self-supported. And I think I qualified. You have to qualify for it. I qualified second year. I think I practiced the first year. Then the second year, that was I believe 2011. I qualified, went to France, did it, finished, became the first Puerto Rican female to finish ever, try and complete the whole distance. And after that, I think there was another pivoting moment because somebody reached out to me, a good friend, and said, "Hey, I know someone who's looking for females. Um, they need to be good with, or not good, but like they need to like doing long distances. I think they're missing one person in the team, and I want to know if I can give them your name." And I said, "Sure." I mean, I never asked anything. I think I still don't ask. I'm that person who will say yes, and then when she finds out, what I sign up for, I kind of like get scared, but then I manage. So I said, sure. I mean, give him my name, and I think that I thought it was a joke. And about, I don't know, 45 minutes after I received a call, that actually changed my life, because I was given the opportunity to be part of a 6 female team that did the entire Tour de France route, all 21 stages. And and I thought, you know, this is a joke. I kept telling myself, I kept saying yes to everybody, and I thought it was going to be a joke. And it ended up being something very big, at least for me. I think that for the female community as well. And from there on, I think that that was 2012, I believe, and I haven't stopped riding my bike and accepting big challenges. And I look back and I think that was a moment where my life completely changed. Like, then cycling became the center of everything in my life. And I did some running and I did some, triathlons, but cycling is the one thing that I'm just very, very passionate about. Um, but yeah, that's the short story of it.
I'm still astounded by the 750, and to
Yeah.
hear in 3 months, I went ahead and did 100 miles. So anything under 100 miles is just boring to you, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
the
like a 30
750.
mile would be like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever.
But yeah, I know, and every time I share my story, I don't want people to think I'm bragging about it. A lot of time I try to embrace the grayness of what I do, but I don't. I just every time I share, I would love for someone to say, "Oh my gosh, you went from like 0 to 100 to a 750." Because I think
Yes.
that people limit themselves so much. I don't have time, and I don't have a supportive partner, and I have 3 kids, and I have 7 jobs, and I do have all of that. And I struggled through my entire life with a lot of things. I can literally write a book, and I just want to make people understand. No, it was not easy for me back then. It is absolutely easy right now, but not back then. And I worked towards it. And I was self-supported, and nobody paid for anything. And
Right.
so yeah. But that 750 miles, I still look back and I'm like, whoa. And I would love to go back now with all the experience that I have and tackle it again to see the difference between back then, because I was a total rookie when I did that. And I think there's a benefit when you're a rookie because you don't know that much and then you just go for it and you don't think too much. But yeah, that
Right.
750 was something else.
Yeah. I mean, going from 0 to something, you know, 0 to, 20
To
miles,
12,
0 to
yes.
50 miles, that's something because
Yes,
everybody's, story is different.
correct.
So,
Correct.
you started out and you kind of took that, go big or go home approach.
Yeah,
But,
totally.
but,
And
but, or go big or go home. Somebody else's
hmm
go big or go home might be a 30
yeah,
mile ride.
exactly.
All
Yeah,
right.
I have
So
one athlete that went from 0 to 12, and that was her greatest accomplishment, you know?
yes,
Yeah.
and I think so
Yeah.
that we look at what we've accomplished as an individual, and we kind of think that, well, if I can do it, if I can do that, then you can do that. But
Exactly.
again, everybody has they come from different walks of life. So
Yes.
it may, that might not want to particularly accomplish, but they
Pursue,
may want to
correct.
accomplish something that's a little less than that. And we have to
Yep.
be encouraging to them on that.
Yep.
Okay, so with cycling and stuff, and I'm gonna kind of go back. You say you start out with spin. I'm a spin instructor as well.
Uh-huh.
And, you like you said, you sat in the back. We want to sit in the back sometimes because you try to hide. But that kind of goes into let's kind of into training. So cycling long distance, there's a certain level of training you have to have,
Yeah.
and to kind of prepare for. So what does a week of training for you look like?
My training weeks have changed through the years. That person who will thrive for more and who will, try to, if I'm not feeling comfortable with X and Y, I will try to find something that will make me feel comfortable. And every person is completely different. And at the current moment, I have a very packed training. So I'm basically training 6, 7 days a week, which is something that I was not doing in, I've been doing this for about 2, 3 months now, I think, three
Okay.
maybe. But I believe in short and intense with mindfulness of recovery,
Okay.
because you have to allow your body to, you know, absorb everything you're putting it through and become better. So at the current moment, I'm even though I'm a morning person and I answer, morning or afternoon training, I'm morning training right now. The space I have in my day is during the afternoon after I come from work, and I am doing strength training followed by my hour to hour and a half on the trainer cycling training. And it's more of a new foundation workout that we're doing, plus trying to bring my numbers a little bit higher than before, which is, sometimes people don't like the beginning of any training cycle. I love
Right.
it because that's your base, and nothing works without a great foundation.
Right.
So I truly focus on foundation.
Okay. So you self, or do you have a trainer or coach that you work
So I am a coach, but I do need a coach. I'm that
with?
person who needs to be told and who needs the guidance and who needs the feedback and support. Also the accountability, because if I make my own training, I will be the one, and I'm very honest about this. I will be the one saying, "Oh, sure," because I know I can say, "Well, I don't have to do it today. I will do then tomorrow this and this and that," and I will change it all the time. So I do not coach myself. I do have somebody who coaches me.
Okay.
I need that accountability.
Okay. All right. So are starting 2023. We're getting 3 years past the pandemic,
Hmm.
and you know, pandemic. It doesn't matter what type of athlete you were, whether you're a runner, endurance athlete, cyclist. Uh, your training changed one way or another. Some people they did less training, in performance, and some people, they actually kind of pivoted and did more training. So
Hmm.
what did you kind of go with yours?
Um, I think that there was a balance of both. I think it pivoted. I think the pandemic gave us a different perspective of things, and I was going into that age group where we think a lot about a lot of things. So yeah, and I'm not scared. I can show my age if needed. But I think that we realized a lot of people realized a lot of things through the pandemic. I don't think I was doing more. I just think I had more time to think about specifics and okay, I wanted I was that person who always trained and did the races just to finish and to share her journey so others will say, okay, she finished, I can finish. So I think it pivoted to where I said, you know what? I think I can aim for more. I think I can aim for podium, and I think I can aim to break a record. And don't get me wrong, I do have a few records out there. I just consider them more of personal records. So I think it pivoted to where I realized, you know what? I'm getting older. I think it's okay to let go of I just want to finish and be aggressive in terms of I want to get podium and I want to do this race and I want to be win my age group or my gender. So I think it pivoted towards that to being more aggressive in terms of my goals, and by default then my training would be more focused and mindful. Like I was more mindful of it, and I will not skip it or say, no, I'm tired, or it doesn't matter, I don't get paid for these. So I think it pivoted towards me being a little bit more aggressive with my goals.
Okay. Okay. So, we was kind of staying on the training topic. What about fueling yourself? How do you fuel, um, for just general bike rides, for your training, and more specifically for, current cycling, because that's something that, at least in my area of the United States, out, you know,
Uh-huh.
you know, and we'll talk about that more. But I'm just kind of interested, how do you fuel and kind of you know keep that energy going?
I think that it's a very interesting question. My my journey about food has been very, very interesting. I haven't been one. I'm healthy overall speaking, but I haven't been one to not eat an ice cream because oh my gosh, or not drink a beer because oh my gosh.
Right.
And after um, uh, yes, and you have to. Okay, let me start here by saying, when you do 500 milers, for example, you're training. There's no day where you're gonna go out there and go like, oh sure, today's my 500-mile practice, and I'm gonna figure my food out. So there's nothing like that. Yes, you go longer than probably for any other race out there. Your training days, there will be some that are longer. But with this sport, you learn as you go through the races. So your races are your trial and error. And food has been something that I have been dialing in forever, and I think I got into a nice rhythm. But I would love for people to understand also that what works for me doesn't work for everybody, and maybe what works for you at some point might not work for you at your next, age group, for example. So I went from like eating real food on the bike to wanting to be more efficient and do only liquid food. And at some point, we realized that it doesn't work. Like 100% liquid diet did not work for me. You also have to keep in mind that also your body is not meant to be awake, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Right.
At that time range, your body should be sleeping and not eating. So it takes a little bit of training to do that as well. And I was noticing that, exactly from like 11 p.m. to maybe 3, 4 a.m., my body was like, nope. We don't even if you're working out, even if you're out there riding your bike, we don't want any food.
Right.
So again, every race we learn a little bit more and we try something different. I mainly use liquid diet through the race, but I also have learned to identify, for example, temperature wise, if it's super cold, I definitely cannot. I love my drinks to be super cold. I love using ice. So if it's too cold, that's something I cannot do. So I've learned. Um, I have also learned to, when I start a race, in order for me not to go to the bathroom right away, I will go solid, probably an hour, hour and a half before. Some real food in my stomach, and that will give me an hour on the bike without me having to worry, I have to drink or I have to do X amount of calories. Um, and then my pre-workouts and my post-workouts are from the same brand. I don't even know if I can share my brand, but yeah, that's my pre, during, and post, and some solids because again, you have to play around based on the temperatures and on sometimes even, for example, I don't like eating solids when I'm climbing. And if I do a race that has a lot of climbing, that's another monster. So it's been a learning curve for me, if that makes sense. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
still, I think, dialing it in. So there are, yeah, if I have a loop, I will carry, the least amount of things possible. And then when I come back to my pit area, I will just grab what I need. But it's been a learning experience for me, and I'm still like dialing it in, but mainly liquid food, just to be efficient.
And I think fueling's that thing that we all try to different things to find. And
Hmm.
it's, you might find something and it works for a while, then
And then it doesn't.
yeah, exactly. Then it
Yes,
doesn't. Then
correct.
you're back in the search again, trying like, okay, that's
Yes,
I got to find something else.
yes. And and
That's
and
something.
that, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, so that's something that actually happened to me very frequently. I will go through the supermarket before a race, and I will grab a little bit of everything I thought I would crave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the race or through the race, I will crave completely opposite to what I had in the car, in the follow vehicle, completely opposite. So I started then doing, like, okay, let me think about crunchy, salty, sweet, um, soft. So I started to do more of the buying based off on texture instead of
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm craving M&Ms or whatever other stuff. So I did a lot of texture when I was buying. So yeah, everything, it's like you said, like it changes. It changes. You may crave something warm one day, and then there's another race where you're craving everything, cold. So it's it's a challenge. And then, my regular food, I try not to deprive myself from a lot, but again, age. With age, for us women, comes like a lot of mindfulness about it when the hormones start playing a role.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not the same. So now I'm a little bit more mindful. So yes, for those of you who think, oh, she writes, 500 miles a week, she can eat whatever. No, I can't. I actually need to be mindful. So, and it doesn't hurt me, it doesn't hurt me to be mindful about it.
All right. So let's kind of talk about ultra endurance cycling. You know,
Hmm.
and from my experience, I knew that there were rides that were super long distance and stuff. But here in Georgia, at 100 miles, the most I've ever seen. That's
Uh-huh.
available. You have the 30, 60, and 100 mile. But when you start talking about, I'm just gonna say 750 miles, and I'm trying to picture 750 miles because I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, so my house to Orlando is about 400 miles.
So
So,
see, you can do one from your house to Orlando and back.
and that's what I'm like, okay, yeah, that is a trip to my house to Orlando and back when I think 750 miles. So, kind of talk about, ultra endurance cycling, for those who might not know, about the sport.
It's, well, like you said, long, long distances. That's the best way to describe it. I promise it sounds heavier when you talk about it than when you do it.
Okay.
I like driving, and I have been part of a lot of teams helping the athletes, part of their crew. And I think, in my brain at least, Maybe that's what I've come to believe, through the years. But in my brain, my cycling 500 miles, it's easier than driving 500 miles. Um, it's a lot of, I think it's more a mind over body kind of thing. I mean,
Okay.
it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not like you can say, oh, sure, I'm gonna go out there and ride 500 miles. I can do it. Yeah, that's the attitude you need. But I think it's more, once you put up the training, it's more like a mindset. You have to be open to fail, fall, and stand up, and you have to be able to adapt as you go because
Okay.
you may have the best training, you may be super ready, you may have all the miles under your legs, and first 40 miles, just to give you an example, with that 750 miles, I will never forget. 45 miles in, I still have how many to go? 705. Um, my Garmin died.
Oh,
So yes, and that back then, back then things were not as they are now. So back then we had, our cue cards that had all the, where you have to turn. So I'm
right.
grateful that back then was that way. Now you're Garmin dies and you're like, what do I do now? So I don't know. Endurance, it's more. I will say it's more of a mind over body or mindful thing than anything else. But I think that people get scared over the distances, and anybody that wants to try it, I mean, I will encourage them to do it because it's just one of the most. Every time you finish one of these races, whether, like you said, it's a 75 mile or 100 or 200 and 300, and you can start building up to that. It feels like you can take on anything out there in general,
Right.
with your life. So I think it's just riding a lot, training a lot, and having, training your mind as well. But yeah, ultra cycling, I don't know, it's given me purpose, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of miles, so that's the easiest way to describe
It's a lot.
it. A lot of miles.
And that you're also a cycling coach.
Mhm.
So what inspired you to how to be a coach?
After I did that race, that PBP race, the self-supported 750, um, and then I was called for the, group that did this Tour de France 21 stages. Everybody started approaching me. Back then, I was already a spinning instructor and I was a personal trainer, and everybody, started asking me, and I'm like, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, I love helping people, so I was already writing with some, and I just decided to give back to the sport through, being a coach. And it's just, I mean, it's just amazing to, I think that the best way I can put it is I enjoy the smiles, whether, with the personal training or the spinning, and if you're a spinning instructor, you probably feel the same way. It's just a smile on people's accomplishments, whether, again, just something super small or something huge.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I think it's just that I'm that person who loves to see. I smile a lot, I laugh a lot, so I think being able to put, that smile or make somebody happy, I think that's what just fuels me and made me go for it.
Okay. Okay. And talking on the topic of inspiration, what inspires you? What or who inspires you to kind of continue and keep it?
It has to be, and I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, ordinary people. There's so many stories out there, and we commonly see the stories of pros and athletes that get paid for it, and kudos to them. I mean, they're doing something that they like, and they're putting a lot more work than probably we do. But I think that ordinary people, I think they're just special because I mean, when I, every time I find that somebody did X or Y and you never thought about it, it just blows my mind.
Yep.
So it has to be that. I mean, there's so many stories, and it just blows my mind when you're just friends with someone and all of a sudden they share something that you never thought, you know,
Right.
about that person, and it just blows my mind. That's something that I don't know. I'm lacking words right now because it's just that ordinary people out there, you know, making their dreams come true, I guess.
People are amazing, you know, and a lot of times the amazing feats of ordinary people sometimes gets overshadowed.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when you hear those things, you know, it does kind of bring that. Yeah, I can probably do that too, or I can do something close to that level. So it's that, you know, it gives you that kind of inspiration.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question. You know, you're a cyclist. What type of bike you got? Gotta ask that question.
I do have less bikes than before, by the way, but I'm telling you, aging, it's a thing.
That was going to be the next question. That was going to be the next question. How many bikes do you
have? Well, oh my gosh, I shouldn't say I only have, but based on my personal experience in the past, at the current moment, I only have 4. One of them is decommissioned because it's the one that I use for the tour, and I will never have the heart to sell that bike or anything, so it's just there as a reminder of that big thing that I did.
Okay.
When, you know, I thought I was going to die 5 days into it, and then I survived 21, even with a car accident. So that one is decommissioned, and then I have my time trial bike. I have my, what I call my climbing bike, because I usually take 2 bikes with me for every long race. And I have now my mountain bike. Yes, and I'm trying to find a way to make an excuse to get a gravel bike now.
You'll figure out one.
I know, right? I know, we always do. But yeah, mountain bike, my climbing road bike, and my time trials are the ones that are active right now. And figuring a way to get my gravel bike.
Okay. Is there a bike that you ride? I know there's some people that
Yes.
only go to one brand. That's it.
Well, I think that the bikes speak to you. I think that
Yeah.
um and I hope that if anybody gets anything from this show would be, again, what works for me doesn't work for everybody, and what works for somebody else may not work for me. And it's a lot of trial and error. And yes, at the current moment, the bikes that I do, they're all Treks. So Trek is a current bike, or it's a bike that at the current moment I'm feeling inspired with. It's a bike that I feel comfortable with. And you know, there are a lot of bikes out there that I have tried, and sometimes you get on a bike and you feel like, you know, so everybody can understand, you feel slow, and then you get on the same bike, maybe it's another brand, and then all of a sudden you're, you know, great with that bike. So I think that the bike that makes you feel empowered for whatever reason, it's the bike that you should get.
Oh, I
But yeah,
totally
I'm that person. I'm that person that will just, if I like a brand, I will have, you know, all the, like the road and the mountain bike and the time trial from that brand. I'm that person.
All right. So this is a 2-part question here. So the first part of the question is, what is your proudest moment as a cyclist? And the second part of that question is, what is your worst moment or biggest mistake you've made as?
Oh wow. I proudest moment. I have a lot of moments that were like, whoa. But I think that that 100 miler back in 2008 or 809, or I don't I don't remember when it was. It was between 2008 and 2010 probably. Finishing that 100 miler was the first thing that popped up when you asked the question. Like the smile on that picture, it's something that I will never ever forget. I mean, I can say, finishing the 750 when I was in a foreign country by myself, surviving for 89 hours, a country that had another language. So, I mean, I have a lot, but I think that probably finishing my first ever 100 miler will be, whoa, I can actually do this.
Okay.
um, yeah, I think so. I know that out of all the things that I've done, yeah, yeah.
Well,
um, I don't know, maybe, yeah. There was a 500 miler where I thought I was not gonna get to the finish line on time, and I made it sparing like 2 minutes. That can be another proud moment where I was super sleep deprived. I had been pedaling for 40 whatever hours, and I made it with, I did, like, I pushed and pushed, even
yeah.
being sleep deprived and tired and hungry. And I had a little bit of I had my first episode of Schirmer's neck,
Oh
and
wow.
and and making it to the finish line after that, with 2 minutes to spare, that might be another like whoa moment for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Worst moment or biggest mistake? Um, might be the same race actually. Um, the one that I had, like 2 minutes to spare. I think that I wanted to tackle one of like the longest climb, and I think I started climbing at night. I had been pushing my body already for like I don't know how many hours, and I know uh, I was already a little bit dehydrated back on my food intake. Everything was kind of like off, and I just wanted to tackle that 20-mile climb and get it over with. And I think I could have stopped maybe, take a little break like everybody was doing,
Right.
and I don't know, bring my numbers back up. And I think that's the one that comes to my mind as my, oh, wait a minute, this is not how I was supposed to do it. I just wanted to get it done with, but the entire climb, I was, nauseated. We were at altitude. I was already behind, with my calorie intake, and I was nauseated, and I was stopping, thinking I was going to throw up for the longest time. I mean, it was a brutal, brutal climb, and I just wanted to get it over with. So, but now I probably, if I do the race again, which I will never do again. But you forget about it like in 3 weeks.
Yep.
So I think that I would either try to make it earlier to the climb and tackle it, or if I know that I'm behind, calorie wise or feeling awful, I will probably, okay, let's stop. Let's just reassess, get our things together,
Right.
and go for it. So I think that might be the one,
Okay.
that moment, I think.
And you learn from, our worst
Oh yeah.
moments. We always have that thing in the back. I want to do it again. See if I can doing it right this time.
Exactly. It still scares
Right.
me. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. The race still scares me, but yeah, I would probably like to do that one again to see the difference.
All right. So, a lot of people, when I started, running and cycling, I was in my 40s.
Hmm.
And that is something that, I kind of took the initiative, kind of pushed myself to do for
Hmm.
me. All right.
Yep.
But what message would you have for someone who, is 40s, they're in their 50s or even older, and their mindset is, it's too late for me to start this?
Yeah, I do have somebody close to me now. I recently met. I'm 51, by the way, and
Oh,
she's,
hey,
yeah.
you're about
So
51.
yeah, I know we're in that beautiful age. for us women, it might be a little bit more complicated, and you have to deal with a whole new set of things.
Yeah.
But it's another learning curve, and yeah, that's another different topic. So if someday you want to talk about menopause and hormones, I'm your girl. But anyways, I even forgot. I think no, I didn't forget the question. Okay, so I hear a lot, and I heard it a lot in the past. Everybody telling me, oh, but I'm so out of shape. I'm like, well, that's why you're starting. Like, so
Right.
I don't think that there's a perfect age to start. I don't know. Maybe you start at 20 and then you just don't do it anymore until like you're back 50. So I think I'm reassessing my whole, I don't know, 10 years, 11 years, and
Mm-hmm.
starting like basically from scratch because I want to do even more epic and I want to now go for goals and podiums and whatever or not. So I don't think there's an age limit. And the one thing that I really, really need to people to understand is that's why you will start training. That's why you, for example, hire a personal trainer or cycling training or running, cycling coach or running coach. Because if you don't know how to do it, you don't know what you're doing, you need that guidance. I don't think there's an age. I mean, I heard the other day on another podcast the story of this woman that started doing Ironmans and at what 48 or something like that. I'm like, whoa, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's an age. I mean, people limit themselves too much, and I think it's just because we're as humans are, overly thinking everything. I just
Yep.
think people should just go for it. Find somebody who can help you and just go for it. The worst thing that can happen is, I don't know, maybe you thought you wanted to do 300-mile races and you just want to do now like, I don't know, 25 or 50, or maybe you want to go for 1,000. So I think it's just taking that first step. Like, don't be scared. Seriously. Like, and if you are, call me. I'm gonna give you a pep talk. Because yeah, I mean, I seriously this year I thought it was over for me, and in June, and I was like, no, I still hear
Right.
like stories from people that are 76 and 86 and
Yes.
92. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
enjoy talking athletes
hmm
that are in their 70s and 80s because if you watch them, even though they might be dead last, there's
hmm
time.
yeah. But people need to understand that if you're gonna go into something, go in it for personal reasons, not to, I don't know, be like you have to. I always race against myself. I don't consider
Right.
myself competitive, even though people say I am. If competing against myself all of a sudden brings me into the fight for, third place, second, or whatever, then I'm gonna go for it like a mad
Exactly.
woman. But
Yeah.
I'm always competing for my goal, my personal goal, or beating my same time like the year before. And the older I get, the more I try to do that because, people say, no, maybe you won't be able to be as fast or as. And I'm like, well, let me try to prove you wrong.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think there's an age. And I think that people need to be less scared and just go for it because seriously, this will sound as a very like a cliche, but life is short for real.
Oh yeah.
And the more you
The
keep thinking about stuff, the more, I don't know,
much
the
time goes
later
by.
it'll be exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get to it one day. Yeah, I'll get to
hmm
it. Yeah.
And yeah,
And
and all of a sudden you're like, oops.
right. Exactly. What is a non-cycling thing or fact about you that no one knows?
At this point, I have forgotten every other skill I had. I had a creative slash artistic side. And I used to play the piano, and I used
Ah,
to
okay.
sing a little bit, and I used to be creative with my hands. Like I did jewelry. I bet nobody remembers that, or if somebody knew, I don't know, maybe nobody knows that about me. But I used to do jewelry,
Oh,
like
okay.
handmade, like Yeah,
No,
I have that creative side on me, and all of a sudden, like cycling came across, and I'm like, oh, okay.
nice, nice. All right. So before I let you go, what's
Yes,
next for you? Are you training for anything? Are you
yes,
getting ready for any major event?
yes, I am. I recently, and I don't think I shared this before with you, but I recently, I decided to get my name in the Leadville lottery, and I got an email a week ago saying, congratulations, you are
Oh,
in.
awesome.
And I was gonna do a different race this year. I had my calendar. I'm doing my first 24-hour mountain bike wise in February, like I think it's 3, 4 weeks from now, which is another accomplishment for me. I've done 6 hours, 12 hours. It'll be my first 24 on a mountain bike.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, that would be another monster for me. But after that, I had a few things that I've done in the past, but they were not big for me. Like in my brain, they were not like fueling me. Um, so I had plans of doing a road race, and I'm like, I might leave this for 2024. So I was still trying to figure out what to do, the second half of the year. So I decided to get my name there, and yes, I'm going. And I was super excited when I found out, and then I started watching videos, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what did I just sign it for? Yeah, and I invite people to do that. If you commit before you know, it's a different, I don't know, perspective maybe. Like you will just train like, I don't know, it'll give you a purpose, I think. And
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I will just commit without finding out, and then when I find out, I'm like, that was crazy. I should have not done that, but now I cannot go back. So I force
Right.
myself to do that. And yeah, this will be in August, and I'm looking forward. It's a very hard race, so I'm gonna try to beat the odds, I guess. So.
Oh, you got
I'm
this.
talking
You got
about it and I'm getting a little bit anxious here. I'm like, oh my gosh.
this. All right. You have any last words you want to share with the listeners before you go?
Um, I think that believing in yourself, there's a lot that happens in life. Um, and if you wonder if you're the only one out there, please give me a call. I'll share my entire life with you. I think people should never, ever, ever quit, like give up. Life happens to all of us. And, I think Ultra has given me the tools to work with life the same way as life has given me the tools to work with, Ultra. I just think you have to quiet your brain. You have to get out of your main circle, everything that might be negative or pulling you to the wrong direction. And don't be scared to do that. I remember me being very scared of that, and now I'm not scared. Like if you're not adding to my life, if a thing or a person is not adding to my life, I will not be rude, but I will just, nope. I cannot
Right.
let that in my inner circle. And I think you have to be selfish with yourself when it comes to, your mental state and your physical state. You do you, and
Yes.
you believe
Yes.
in yourself, and you don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yes. Those are great last words. Maria,
Mhm.
thank you for being a guest on the show. I really appreciate
Thank you for having me. Seriously, it was a blast.
you. So, if people will follow you online, how can they do so?
So Instagram, and you can find also my coach profile. On Instagram is coach underscore Maria underscore PR. And then you will find there the link to the webpage, but the webpage will be Better Coaching Services. Um, Be better, yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
So yeah, there's two ways. Instagram again, coach underscore Maria underscore PR, and you will find there the Be Better Coach Service .com.
Maria, again, thank you for coming on the show. I really
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for having me. Thank you, thank
All
you.
right. All right. You have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast. We really appreciate everyone who tunes in each week. If you enjoyed today's show, please support us by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember to tell your friends about the No Gimmicks, Just Sweat podcast, so we can continue to have awesome conversations with everyday athletes just like you. Until next time, have an amazing week.